We have all kinds of interesting NHL news and rumors to take a look at today. Today's rumor mill focusing on a variety of teams, including Toronto Maple Leafs, the Ottawa Senators, Calgary Flames, Buffalo Sabres, San Jose Sharks, Vegas Golden Knights, Dallas Stars, and the Anaheim Ducks. I know that's a lot, but we have a lot to discuss here today. Plus, we have some important updates of the 2028 World Cup of Hockey, the 2026 Olympic Hockey Tournament, plus the ownership change with the Toronto Maple Leafs is finally closed. So we'll discuss that. Plus, we have activity on the NHL waiver wire and some more free agent frenzy signings. We'll discuss all that coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned, we have lots to discuss here. Another very interesting, newsworthy day in the world of the NHL. Of course, July 1st has come and gone with the free agent frenzy, which was, to be honest, a little disappointing, but the signings are still continuing to trickle in. And now I think we're going to see a flurry of trade activity now that there's not a whole lot of really interesting free agents left out there on the market. There are still some interesting names that might help a team, but the bulk of the work is kind of done. We're going to still get a few here and there, maybe a couple every day or something for a little bit, but the bulk of the work in that area is completed. And of course, Nick Ehlers, arguably the most productive free agent that was out there, has now signed, which we'll discuss in a second. So the San Jose Sharks today claimed Nick Leddy on waivers. That was a little bit of a shocker. We saw yesterday and talked about it in yesterday's video that the St. Louis Blues were actively trying to trade Nick Leddy, who's got 1 year left on his contract with $4 million as the AAV. Well, trade activity was not really happening. They were not getting too far with trade talks. So they're like, you know what, we're going to try putting him on waivers to see if somebody will pick him up. And the Sharks actually take him. Considering the number of defensemen they already had under contract, I was kind of confused why this was a play, because they also today announced the signing of another veteran defenseman, Dmitry Orlov. Orlov comes over from Carolina, signing a 2-year deal with a value of $6.5 million per season. So they just took on another $10 million in salary. Mind you, nothing too long-term, which is good, but another $10 million in salary on 2 more veteran defenders. They've already got a few other veteran defenders out there, like they signed John Klingberg in free agency for a year. They still have Mario Ferraro. They got Timothy Liljegren, who's not an older veteran, but has been around long enough now. Not to mention some of their younger D that have experience in the last year or two. Plus, they got guys like Sam Dickinson and more coming. Okay, why do they need and have so many D? And for right now, the answer is trying to get to the salary cap floor. They still had a lot of money to spend just to get to the minimum amount. So I do expect there still to be some juggling within the Sharks lineup. I still think we're going to see some trades, which we'll talk about a little bit later in the video. But for right now, they've added Leddy and Orlov today. So they've got a plethora of veteran defensemen. Now, mind you, the Orlov 2-year deal, which isn't very long, Orlov is the only experienced D signed beyond the coming season. So obviously they've got Leddy on 1 year left. They signed Klingberg for 1 year. Ferraro's down to 1 year. I think Liljegren's only got 1 year left. So there's not much on their roster, especially in this part of it, that's signed for any length of time. So they do have lots of flexibility, but at the same time they don't want to lose a year of development and completely block out some of their prospects that are ready for more of a bigger role. So we'll see how they do that. We'll talk about that a little bit further in the trade segment here, which we'll get to in a few minutes. The Montreal Canadiens today announced they've signed RFA defenseman William Trudeau. He gets a 1 year, 2-way contract. Will continue likely playing with their AHL club. Like I said, the big signing today was Nikolai Ehlers signing with the Carolina Hurricanes. 6-year deal, $8.5 million. To me, I think Carolina was a team that a lot of us kind of had pegged as Ehlers' landing spot. I know for me, certainly had the feeling for some time that he wasn't going back to Winnipeg. And all the talk in the last 2, 3, 4 days was that Carolina was probably by most people's standard, the front runner. Washington was very interested and rumored to have made a very good offer as well. There were a few other teams, obviously, besides the Jets that were also in the mix there. But Carolina gets their guy. That's a couple of big names and big contracts they've added now in free agency. Of course, the other one being the RFA that they added to sign and trade with the Rangers, getting K-Andre Miller inked up to an 8-year contract to help their blue line for the foreseeable future. So Ehlers, will certainly add lots of speed. Pretty good production there. I mean, he does have a little bit of issue staying healthy at times, which will be a little bit of a concern. And clearly, the way they play, I don't know if it completely fits Ehlers' style, but hopefully he can adapt a little bit. And I think the fact that he's so fast, though, will certainly play along well with Brind'Amour. They play a fast, hard, heavy game, so the forecheck is just relentless. So at the end of the day, I think it's probably a pretty good fit. I know one of Ehlers' big things in Winnipeg is that he wasn't consistently getting top-line minutes, first power play time. So looking at the Carolina roster, I'm not sure that it's really that much structured, that much different, that they can absolutely guarantee him the same sort of thing. But I'm assuming with talks with the team that they have kind of assured him that he'll get plenty of opportunity that way. So I suspect maybe he'll get a chance to play with Aho and Jarvis on the left side. Maybe they move Svechnikov to the second line. Carolina, to me, they still got lots of money to spend as well. Even though they've taken on Ehlers, they've taken on K'Andre Miller, they have a lot of cap space. Right now, it's like Kotkaniemi would be your number 2 center. I don't really think that's wise. So I do suspect the Hurricanes are working and chipping away at trying to figure out whether, most likely at this point in trade, to see if they can't find an upgrade in that area. But Ehlers, the big free agent fish, has finally landed and will be a Hurricane moving forward. I know one of the big things that he had expressed that was out there in the rumor mill was that he wanted a place that was a little bit quieter, somewhere that wasn't quite so, I guess white hot was a term that was thrown around, of course, Winnipeg being a very passionate Canadian market. Not that he didn't like it, I just think he wants to be able to kind of fly under the radar a little bit more and maybe not have to deal with the media quite so much. So it's a good landing spot for him. I think Carolina's a good fit and should be a place where he can be productive. We're starting to get contract signing as well for ELCs for some of the 2025 draft class. With the first one being announced today with the Seattle Kraken. Of course, they were obviously picking in the top 10. They've signed their first rounder, Jake O'Brien. He gets his 3-year ELC. And the Washington Capitals have also signed one of their picks, the second rounder, Milton Gastrin, who gets a 3-year ELC. There is a clause in, of course, that he can play in Europe, and he is expected to remain in Sweden, play with Fermodo next year. So a couple of members of that draft class already getting their entry-level deals signed, sealed, and delivered. The Florida Panthers today also announced they've come to terms with Mackenzie Entwistle. He gets a 2-year deal at league minimum. And the Winnipeg Jets have brought back Mason Shaw, a 1-year, 2-way contract with a lucrative AHL salary. Most likely going to play for the Manitoba Moose, but will be a call-up option if need be. So a few other items, and then we'll get into the trade talk here. The NHL and the NHLPA finally have officially signed their Olympic deal. Obviously, we knew that as of the last press conference with Gary Bettman when they announced the new CBA, that they hadn't officially signed all the papers to be 100% locked in and on board for the 2026 Olympics, even though everything was trending towards that, and there was no concerns that it wasn't going to happen. But obviously, there were reasons that all the stuff couldn't be finalized until now. So, of course, that's all signed, sealed, delivered. The NHL, NHLPA finally have inked all the paperwork, dotted the I's, crossed the T's. The 2026 Olympic Games are now not only something that's been promised and given to happen, it's now official. And speaking of Olympic tournaments, we know that the NHL wants to continue not only going to the Olympics, but having a World Cup of Hockey. I want to bring that back. We know in the latest in the CBA talks that was something that was discussed. The players want to have best-on-best international hockey every 2 years. And obviously, they used to have the World Cup. It hasn't been going on for some time. They wanted to bring that back. And we know that even before the CBA was announced as being agreed upon by the NHL and the NHLPA, that the NHL had already put out a request for bids. So any cities that are interested in hosting the 2028 World Cup of Hockey can put forth their expressions of interest. I believe how it'll work is you put forth an expression of interest now. put together a nice little package as to why you should be considered. And then I believe they'll reach out to some of the, cities that I'm not sure they're kind of considered finalists or ones that they've kind of view as at least options, and which I believe will be in August, which will be to put forth a more formal proposal at that point. And then I believe the cities will be announced and determined sometime early in the new year in 2026. Now, I can confirm, based on reports out of Ottawa today, that the Ottawa Senators and owner Michael Landauer are very interested in being one of the hosts. It sounds like there's going to be 2 host cities here. There is a possibility that one could be in Europe, so we'll have to factor that in as well. The NHL is not set on only having this tournament be in North America, although there's probably a lot of reasons that it would maybe be easier, but I don't think they're really necessarily just looking at easy here. I think they want to make sure that they also have a great spot for the players, a great spot for the fans. There's going to be more than just a good rink to play in. They want to have a lot of stuff going on outside of the rink, within the city as well, to promote the game too. So we'll see what they ended up doing. It wouldn't be completely shocking if they do some games in Europe and some in North America, but that's just a guess on my part. All I can say so far, this is the first city we've heard of that are definitely interested. I believe there's a cutoff date for expressions of interest coming up around the middle of July. I think it was the 18th or something like that is the cutoff. So in the next couple of weeks, we'll probably hear of a few more cities. I mean, not everybody has to make it formally known publicly that they're doing this, but I would imagine they'll get at least a couple more within Canada, probably a few in the U.S. as well, not to mention at least a few in Europe, and then they'll have to kind of weigh things out. Ottawa's hosted many international tournaments before. They've had the World Juniors on multiple occasions, and I believe they were one of the World Cup cities way back when they first opened that arena. So, and if they don't get the 2028 World Cup, if they don't end up becoming a host, I know it was mentioned in the article in the Ottawa newspaper today, and written by Bruce Garriock, that even if it's not that one, that the one after in 2032, that they definitely want the NHL to know that they're interested in that one too, if 2028 doesn't come to be. And the hope is by 2032 that they'd have their new arena, so they could possibly even be one of the host cities there and have an even brand new arena to hopefully showcase. So either way, they're in the mix for one of the next 2 for sure. And as I mentioned as well, the ownership in Toronto Maple Leafs and MLSE is finally officially changed. We've known for some time that the former split ownership relationship between Rogers and Bell was coming to an end, with Rogers taking over the Bell shares of MLSE, and that they had already had an agreement, but it wasn't closed. Now, as of yesterday, I think it was, it's official. So Rogers is now the official majority owner of Major League Sports and Entertainment. They now own 75%. So obviously we've seen a lot of changes within, I think, how some of the things are being done. We've seen changes on the Leafs side, on the Toronto Raptors side. Of course, they own a number of teams under MLSE, and of course, Rogers also owns the Toronto Blue Jays. That's not part of MLSE, but Rogers has a major, enormous footprint on Canadian sports between the Blue Jays, the Raptors, the Leafs, and a few other teams that they own. Not to mention that they have, of course, the media side of their business with all the, the media. Like they own Sportsnet, and they got all these TV channels, and of course they're one of the major providers in the country for TV and internet services, cell phone service, all that stuff. So clearly Rogers has got a huge monopoly in Canada when it comes to all that stuff. Now, as I mentioned as well, all kinds of trade talk, and many feel, including, I know insider Chris Johnson was one who said it publicly, now that Ehlers is signed, he expects a lot more trade activity to pick up, because with Ehlers being one of the last big names to get a contract in place, there's not much out there, like I said, on the free agent market. There's still some decent players. I'm not saying there aren't any. I don't want to disrespect the UFAs that have yet to find a contract or a place to play yet. There are some decent ones out there, but there's nothing that's going to probably get big term or big money or necessarily have a huge impact. I mean, you might find there's always the odd one that find the diamond in the rough type of thing that might sign a short-term cheap contract and it turns out to be an amazing fit and whatever. But at the end of the day, a lot of teams are just not happy with their rosters, and they're looking for, lots of different pieces, and there's not much out there on the market for free agents because a lot of players did stay put with their existing clubs. So now that there's apparently a lot of trade talk that was taking place between what we've seen at the draft combine before that, and even more so recently into the beginning of free agency, and there was a lot of stuff that was just kind of like parked on hold. Let's see how some of these signings play out before we make moves type of thing. And now they're kind of expecting that we could see a flurry of activity. So we'll have to see where things go. I know one of the big names that's been out there is Rasmus Andersson of the Calgary Flames. The Calgary Flames, according to TSN insider Darren Dreger, have had a couple of really close calls and really great offers for the Swedish defenseman. But he would not sign a contract extension with said team, and therefore the deal would not proceed. Because obviously, as you can imagine, Anderson's got 1 year left on his contract, making around $4.5 million for what he brings for that kind of price tag. It's a pretty good contract. And for the coming season, a lot of teams can fit that into their cap and into their mix here. And they like the player, and they'd like to keep him beyond the current season, of course. So clearly, they're not going to want to sign him or trade for him now if they can't sign him. So I know one team, apparently, according to Dreger, that was made a very substantial, phenomenal offer, is what he called it, was the LA Kings. And the Flames, I think, really liked the deal by the sounds of it. But because Anderson wouldn't sign an extension there, the deal could not proceed. We've heard some other teams as well that were linked to Anderson. I know the Senators were one. I don't know how far that got, but that they were one of them as well. I think St. Louis to some degree was in there too. And well, at this point, it seems like Rasmus's preferred place to be is Vegas. And I do think the interest is mutual. To be fair, we know they're looking for a right shot D. We know that they have terrible news on Alex Pietrangelo and that his career is likely over. So they have a big glaring hole on the right side of their blue line. I think Vegas views Anderson as a terrific replacement. You're not going to get exactly what you get out of Alex Pietrangelo. He's a tough player to go out and say, okay, here's our new guy. That's not really going to happen. But you have players that you think can give you similar quality minutes and hopefully do similar things to some extent. And I think Anderson is a guy that they really like in that respect. So at this point, they can't seem to agree on our trade, so nothing has happened. Now, Calgary, on the other hand, really seems to like Bo Byram. We know Bo Byram out of Buffalo is one of the other younger players in the league that is expecting to be traded. When he left Buffalo at the end of the season, I believe the expectation was that he was getting traded. I think he even packed up all his stuff and moved. That was a rumor. I can't confirm that, but I know that was something that was mentioned. And the belief is that Buffalo wants to change up the mix on their blue line a bit, which they've started the process of doing with the trade when they got Paterka. They got Kesselring coming back, who's a very different, bigger right shot defenseman. So they're trying to change the mix, adding him in. They really liked him as a part of that deal. And now with Byram, like I said, they've known for some time that he probably wasn't going to, meet as much as he had a good season and all that. Like, he just wasn't seemed to be a long-term fit there for what they were looking to do. The other thing is Byram, I think the rumor is for him is that he wants to be paid like a number one defenseman and wants to have an opportunity to be consistently a top pair guy. He feels he's capable of handling that. And when you're playing with guys like Rasmus Dahlin and Owen Power, that's going to be tough to do. For him to play as offside or to play, second, third pair, it's not really what he wants to do. And now I know there were times in Buffalo when he was getting a lot of minutes, especially during Dahlin's injury. And I think he had a good season. But it just seemed like the intention all along from Buffalo's side has been to trade him. A team right at the forefront of that is the St. Louis Blues. The Blues have been right and probably by many are considered to be the most aggressive in terms of going after Byram. And the belief is that there are teams that are really interested in Byram that are looking at the offer sheet. We could see St. Louis strike again, just like they did last year to the Oilers. Now, Kevin Adams and the Sabres have come out because they were asked about this publicly just a few days ago, and Adams said that they're prepared to match any offer sheet for Byram. They're not worried about it. At the end of the day, they'll get a player on their roster they like and think can help them win games. I'm like, okay, well, if you like him that much, why is he not signed yet? Why was there really no effort to get him signed? And why is all the speculation he's going to be moved? Doesn't really make sense. So I don't really think that's completely the case here. Now, the Sharks are another team that have been in on Byram. I know, like I said, they already have too many defensemen, but at least Byram is a younger, high-end talent that, to me, makes a lot more sense for them on a long-term basis than a lot of the other guys that they've signed. The other guys that they've signed are just fillers for right now because they need to get to the cap floor, and they obviously don't want to rush too many of their young defensemen. So, yeah, does Klingberg make sense? Not really. Does Orlov make sense? Not really. They're just placeholders. That's all they are. So Byram would make a lot more sense. So I can see why they're in there. The Flames and the Kings, though, are also in that mix. Obviously, it's funny with everything that LA has done. They're still being linked to some of these defensemen. But the Calgary Flames are, along with the Blues, kind of expected to really be the main potential landing spots here. I don't know that San Jose is going to be a place where Byram's going to want to sign. Maybe he would, but we haven't kind of gotten that inkling here so far. It's believed he's looking for a long-term deal in that $9 million range. So we'll have to see where this goes. But the Blues and the Flames are very much at the forefront. And with Calgary trying to move Rasmus Andersson, I know, like Dreger said when he was talking on the radio, on the Flames radio hit, saying, like, you know what, if you get Byram, if they can pull that off, they're not going to end up trading Rasmus Andersson to Buffalo because he won't go there. But just you're going to have to try to get the Andersson deal done. Send him to Vegas, get what you can. I don't know what Vegas is offering at this point, but you know they could very well try to get Byram done and then flip Andersson. But we'll see. Calgary's very busy on both of those fronts trying to see what they can do. And like I said about San Jose having too many defensemen, apparently they are considering moving some, according to Dave Pagnotta of thefourthperiod.com. Timothy Liljegren and Mario Ferraro are a couple of the names that are out there. Liljegren, at this point, they came in from Toronto. He's got 1 year on his contract. And with all the other D that they've got coming, I just don't know that they see him. He's more, like I said, he's kind of turned into more of a, I think in the beginning it was more like, okay, he's young, let's get him here, let's see if he can be a big part of the future. And now he's kind of become, I think, more of a placeholder. Ferraro's been in the rumor mill for quite some time, and the belief is that he would welcome a change of scenery and get onto a more competitive team. So look for a couple of those guys for teams that are looking for help on the blue line. Those are some names to watch. Another one out of Vegas is Ben Hutton. Apparently they are trying to find a new home for that veteran defenseman as well. So there's a lot of D that could be, outside of Byram, I don't know if there's a lot of high-end stuff. I mean, Anderson, you can say Rasmus Andersson would be in that category, but he's so particular in where he'll sign that I don't think very many teams have a shot at landing him. So we'll see about that. Now, Jeff Marek had made some interesting comments today as well about Jason Robertson. Of course, Robertson's been a name that we talked about heavily going into the draft, but really in the past week and a half, 2 weeks, it's been kind of quiet, not as much on that forefront. But essentially what Marek says is he doesn't think the Dallas Stars are going to be waiting very long to have conversations with Robertson in his camp on a contract extension to really feel for where things are at and what they're going to be looking for so they can make a decision on that file sooner or later. Hopefully in the early part of July here, that they're either going to try to get him signed if they like the number and they like how everything works out, or if they think it doesn't make sense for them and it's going to be too expensive, that maybe they do go back to considering a trade. At this point, they've kind of done some things that they don't absolutely have to move him to deal with their cap right now. So it's not a foregone conclusion, but he is entering the final year of his contract. A player like that and a team as deep and competitive as Dallas is, it doesn't make sense to subtract during the season. So, maybe an in-season move could be something, but you also don't want to disrupt your flow. I mean, we already seen what they went through last year trying to get Rantanen in and everything. You don't want to be doing that too much. So if you're going to move Robertson, it would make more sense probably to do it this summer. So he mentions the Anaheim Ducks as being a team to watch for if contract negotiations don't go well and they decide that, this is going to be too expensive. It doesn't make sense for us. We probably should look to trade. He feels the Ducks are going to be a team that are going to be heavily interested there. Of course, Robertson would make sense for them on a longer term basis to some degree as well. So we'll have to see about that. Now, speaking of the Ducks, a name that's kind of popped up here out of the blue with some insiders mentioning it is Mason McTavish. Now, I don't think anybody can definitively say at this point that McTavish would be traded. I still think it's probably pretty unlikely. But with all the moves that they've made there, obviously they're a lot deeper than they used to be up front. They also have a number of players who can play center. I know Pat Verbeek's been on record to say he expects Leo Carlsson and Mason McTavish to be his top two centermen for the upcoming season. But they've also got Cutter Gauthier, who's got experience being a center. They got Ryan Strome, a little bit older, but still a pretty decent centerman. And there's some other younger players, too, that can play center. Like they don't have a shortage. They've got probably about 5 or 6 guys on that roster that they could slot into that if need be. They've got lots of scoring wingers as well, which is kind of what forced Trevor Zegras out, that it just didn't make sense for him to stick around, because where are you going to put him, right? Now, that's not necessarily the case with Mason McTavish here, but for one thing, he's a restricted free agent. He remains unsigned. We've heard lots about offer sheets. I'm not suggesting that we know or think he's going to be offer sheeted, but there's just some wondering out there with all the moves they've made and the way that roster is structured. Is there any chance Mason McTavish could find himself available on the market for trade? Now, some people are connecting to particular teams. Now, I don't know, and I would caution that I think this is pretty unlikely to happen. But if the teams around the NHL knew Mason McTavish was available, I honestly think there would be a long line of teams trying to get their hands on this type of player. I mean, he can play. He's a centerman, but he could play on the wing. He's big. He's physical. He's got a nose for the net. He really does a lot of things well. And to me, he's one of those players that you can absolutely win with. He's a known winner. He's had a tremendous success. And some people think that are saying that if he's going to be on the move, to watch his hometown team, and that's the Ottawa Senators. Now, again, Ottawa has, I don't know what they would offer in a McTavish trade it's hard to say. You're probably looking at some of their younger-ish pieces on that team. You're probably looking at Ridley Gregg. You're probably looking at Carter Yakimchuk. You're probably looking at, I don't know. I mean, there's some other interesting younger players there too as well. Hard to say. Maybe a future, couple of picks or something. It's hard to say what a cost would be. I mean, he's a former number 3 overall pick. He's got tons of upside. A couple of reasons why people are connecting him to Ottawa is a couple of things. So for one, he's from the area. His dad also works for the Ottawa Senators, which a lot of people don't know. Dale McTavish is one of the scouts for the Sens, so there's that connection. And the other connection with McTavish and the Sens is that he finished his junior career playing for the Hamilton Bulldogs. Now, he played for the Peterborough Petes for the bulk of it, but who traded for McTavish to come in and help them win the league championship and go to the Memorial Cup? That was Steve Staios and Michael Andlauer, who, of course, Andlauer owned the Hamilton Bulldogs. Staios was the manager/president. So they already know what this kid is capable of. They've had him in junior. They won with him. And I think, obviously, they would, if they had to be asked their opinion, they really like this kid. And like I said, and his dad works for the team. So people are pointing to all these connections and saying, geez, maybe Ottawa could get this guy. Now, there's other teams, too. I'm not convinced McTavish is available. This is mainly coming up because of the fact that he's not signed, and the Ducks have added a lot. So, yeah, I think they'd be foolish to move him, but if Ottawa could get their hands on him, I think they'd be foolish not to. This kid is tremendous, and to me could be a big piece no matter where he ends up. So interesting to see what happens, but don't bank on it. That's just what's going around social media, and we'll see if anything does come from it. I wouldn't be shocked if he signs a contract soon enough, but if things drag on, negotiations don't go well, then more and more questions are going to be popping up, and we'll see where things go. Toronto, on the other hand, is also been linked to looking for some top 6 help. No big surprise. They lost a key member with Mitch Marner. They haven't really been able to do much of anything to replace or kind of get somebody else into that role. You're not going to replace a guy like Marner as a 100-point player. Like, they don't grow on trees. There's not many just kind of sitting around looking for a place to play. So it's going to be tough. Like I said before with the Leafs, they're going to have to probably score a little bit more by committee and have a more balanced approach to this. Like I said, when you lose a player of that magnitude, it's really difficult. The Leafs were rumored to be in on a few other guys that did not work out. They were rumored to be very interested in Brock Besser. Now, I know Nick Kypreos, I believe, said that the Leafs were offering more money to Boeser than what he got to stay in Vancouver. I'm like, okay, here's a problem now. I mean, I know we've heard a lot about the Leafs accusing Vegas of tampering. Technically, Brock Boeser signed with the Canucks before free agency opened. So if the Leafs actually made an offer to Brock Boeser, that's not really allowed, right? I mean, we know tampering happens to me, I think it happens a lot, and you just don't hear much about it, which is why we're hearing the league trying to kind of clamp down on it. But for him to come out and say that they made an offer, maybe they were prepared to make an offer. I don't know that they got to that point, because theoretically it shouldn't have, because Boeser signed about an hour before free agency opened. So we'll see on that front. Obviously, Boeser was a name they were interested in, never happened. Mikael Granlund was a name that came up. Of course, he went to the Ducks, didn't happen. Andrew Mangiapane, a little bit lower level guy, but has scored 30 goals in the past, had an offer, ended up in Edmonton, but he was on Toronto's radar too. They weren't able to land him. Some said that being a Toronto area kid, he just wasn't sure if he wanted to have that pressure of playing at home or not. Of course, probably see what the Oilers have done in the last few years and said, that might be a better option for me for right now. Hard to say, but they've had options here that they've been looking at, and not much has come together. Which they're not the only team in that boat. A lot of teams are. We know they've got guys like Calle Jarnkrok, David Kampf, that are pretty much gonna Trey Living's gonna find a way to move on from those guys. The belief is Nick Robertson very well could find himself playing somewhere else next year too. They've got a number of players they're willing to move. But it's tough to say exactly what they're targeting. We don't know, because everything they have been linked to in free agency has not worked out. There's still a chance. Maybe they bring back Max Pacioretty. That's not even a given either. It's still something that they wouldn't say they close the door on it, but it's far from guaranteed that they do either. It's kind of like 50-50, I'd say, at best at this point. But the Leafs are definitely looking for top six help. Problem is, a lot of other teams are too right now, and it's tough to come by. So we'll see what happens, but they're definitely looking to make a move for sure. So let me know your thoughts on all of today's news or rumors in the comments. We'll discuss further. If you're new to the channel, of course, make sure you subscribe and stick around. This is the place to get all your updates around all 32 teams, all the news and rumors around the entire league. Thanks for watching. I will catch you next time.